Yeah. Here we are. I got my coffee. Cheers. I don't know. It's so interesting when people ask you to talk about yourself. It's actually kind of awkward, but I'll do my best. I am a returning student. I'm a single mother of twins. I grew up in the dark room. I grew up coming home smelling like Fixer in my hair. I grew up with a dad who had this awesome studio right next door to our family's fish market in Garden Grove. Some of my earliest, most precious memories taking naps on gigantic bags of rice in the back room and going into the dark room with my dad. I was probably about 4 in between developing. My dad would prop me up on the counter and I just thought it was like the big machine, the enlarger. And he would get these sheets of paper and he'd put my hands down on the paper and he would do this magic. And then he'd show me what happens. And from then on, I just kind of thought my dad was like this magician. I would watch him in the studio. He had clients like G&L guitars, and I mean, I would sit there on the floor next to his big box of camera gear, and I'd just watch and I'd observe, be very still, very quiet. But that's the majority of my childhood. I didn't have a camera until I would say maybe 6th grade. I went to camp, and my dad let me borrow his little Pentax film, 35 millimeter film camera. And then again, I went to Japan after college when I graduated, and he let me borrow another film camera. And I remember coming home from the Japan trip with just rolls and rolls of film. You gotta understand, growing up, I'm an only child. Both of my parents are artists. My dad's been a professional photographer now for over 55 years. My mom is this crazy, imaginative fashion designer. Growing up as a child, all I wanted to be was like my parents. So when I got home from Japan and I got these rolls of film developed, I heard my dad in the other room say, Erin's got a pretty good eye. And again, you have to understand, I didn't grow up with a lot of, hey, that's great. You should do more of that. It was always about, hey, mommy, look at this dress that I drew. Or, hey, dad, look at what I just made. No blemish on my parents. I think we all grow up with our own stories about how we're impacted by our family. I really wanted to go to art school. I remember in high school, I had a push from my art teachers. And I was like, hey, Dad, I want to go to art center. Because my dad went to art center. And my mom had gone to Otis. So, again, I just wanted to be like my parents, right? I was kind of discouraged. No bad on my dad, but it was like, art center is really difficult, and I don't think I knew or understood at the time how, number one, how expensive it was. Number two, how much work it really is. And that's fine. Everything's perfect. I wasn't upset at anybody. I don't hold any grudges, but I did choose to go to Orange Coast College right after high school. I did that, and then I went into full-time work all the way until I had kids. Who's to say if I'm glad I didn't go to art center, but everything that I learned from when I went to Orange Coast College, I did a communication studies pathway. I went to Cal State Fullerton. I also went to Cal State Long Beach. And then I worked full time. I worked. I worked in sales. I worked in cosmetics. I worked in clothing, luxury retail, and then eventually I went into corporate. This ties in to how I see the world now. I feel very, in retrospect, right? We never know what we're doing now, how it's going to impact the future. But now that I can look back at my 20s, when I look back at who I was in my 20s, I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to work so closely with people in a sales, specifically the beauty industry. It's very interesting when you have an opportunity to speak to women who want to get their makeup done. It's very similar to how you are with people in a portrait situation. So all the things that I learned about people, specifically women, and when they start to trust you in your chair and you have your makeup brushes, you have all these pretty things around, and I'm guessing it's very similar for hairdressers, and they start to share with you how they feel about themselves, what they hate about themselves, what they wish they could change about themselves. You have a choice in those moments. And I was very young. I'm like 23 to 35. I was in a similar industry. You can either move forward with them in a way that pushes them to buy because you're selling to what their insecurities are, or you can actually listen and actually be with their concerns and have a sympathetic, even empathetic heart for what it is that they're sharing with you. I had so many women in my chair crying about their bags, their wrinkles, they wishing that they could change the way that they looked. And I'm there as a salesperson with a bunch of makeup and cream. What am I supposed to do with this? After years of being with so many women's humanity, I don't think I would be able to connect with my subjects, with my clients, with my friends, with people who choose to sit in front of my camera this way that I would had I not had that experience. When you have people who are willing to give that side of themselves to you, you have access to so much more with them. That background, having that background in the beauty industry, you learn so much about other people. Then in my 30s, having children, bodies changing. Then in my 40s, tumultuous breakups, relationships, things go awry. All of these things fueled and informed my creative eye. If you've looked at the breakdown photos, there's one picture. Actually, I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to acknowledge all the people who have joined while I've been talking. Andra, Point of View Gallery, Louise, BDCT714, Confucius, my dad, Al Nomura, Kevin, Black Lab, CJ Smoothness, Ashley. Thank you all for being here. And please, at any time, please type a question or comment or something so that I can stop talking for just a moment, because this is very unnerving, this kind of situation, speaking to questions, comments. Thank you. My monologue is great. Yes. So where was I? So I was talking about breakups and all kinds of life crap that informs us as creatives, right? I thought I had it. I thought I had the man. I thought I had the life that I was going to have. And all of a sudden, it just poof. I had to move back home. Actually, let me rephrase that. I got to move back home because that was another stepping stone into a new creative way of seeing. But I'll get to that in a minute. I think as human beings, we will die if we're not creating. When we're not creative, I feel like humanity is doomed. If we give too much away to AI, if we give too much away to other people doing our job, we're going to lose our creative, intuitive heart, our intuitive spirit. I could give a talk on that. I'm very passionate about creativity. So what fueled my creativity for my breakdown series was a big breakup. And there's 6 images. I had 4 actors that I asked to portray these things. And it's so interesting. After taking Richard Kraft's history of photography class, I realized that there's another photographer who had also done something similar. I kind of like I had an opportunity to acknowledge myself and the work that I've done. when I saw Dwayne Michaels' work. So Dwayne Michaels, we included a lot of text to add context to his photography, and that's what I had done with my breakdown series. So in my gallery show, I had one image of the archetypal socialite, and that's the Asian girl that you saw. She's holding a glass of champagne, and she's tossing her head back. There were four, so I did Brittany was the socialite, Michael Medico was the, let's just call him the professor. He had the book pointing. Neil Patel was the schmoozer. He was kind of stretching up to the sky like this. And then Kelsey, the light-haired girl, was the clerk. So the first image is just of them being in their mask. I called it the inauthentic self. Next image is the breakdown. So I photographed what I was projecting as a breakdown, what we don't show in public, like what we do behind closed doors. And then the final image of just them with that one light on the one eye is the nothing. So I had directed the models to, what would you feel if you were in hell? And there's no emotion, and that was what I asked them to do. That whole series, I had an opportunity to show that series in downtown LA at a gallery. It was a big deal for me because I fundraised that show, and I didn't know if my work was, God, I hate to say good enough, because now I feel like so much of the things that we do as creatives, we're urged to create, but now I'm asking myself, who are we creating for? So there's like the artist side of me and the business person side of me, right? Everything that I showed on OCC Photo is the artist side of me. The business side is, doing portraits for, helping out, assisting my dad and the other studio partner here. But the things that fuel me, like what we were talking about earlier about creativity, if I'm not getting that out of myself, if I'm not photographing, if I'm not drawing, I also love to paint and sketch and collage and all that fun stuff. If I'm not doing any of that, I feel like a raisin. Like I just start to shrivel up. So what plumps me up and makes me feel full and juicy and alive is when I'm creating, and that is when I'm painting and photographing. And also, I love to teach. I love to mentor people who are learning how to discover their creative selves. So, Nora, Liz, Carissa, thank you so much for joining. I hope that this is fun and informative for your Saturday morning. Take a little sip of coffee here. Okay, I did receive an email from someone asking specifically about the photo of the man who's looking directly at the camera, and it has his hands clasped like this. Let me just read to you what. So the question that he asked was, first, the portrait of the man directly facing into the lens with the very narrow depth of field. What was the inspiration? What prompted you to take this approach for this person? Did you know him well before this portrait? He has such a calm and centered presence. Is he normally like this? I love that question. If not, how did you help him in that mind space with the camera pointed at him? Technical question, what lens did you use? Okay, so Steve is a friend of mine. He is a healer. I joke and I call him the crystal baller because he has this amazing crystal collection. I invited him into the studio, and I didn't know how I was going to photograph him, what kind of lighting I was going to use. I just asked him to come and sit, and because he is so patient, I moved things around. We originally had a red background, and it was just too much. It was too much because his energy, I think when you're able to connect with someone and you feel their presence, you know that there are certain things that will work and don't. And you can't force it, especially with people. That's so important with portrait photography. You can't force it. If there's anything that I've learned, especially from my dad, you've got to go with the flow. And there are certain things that you can do if you're comfortable enough, and I think confident enough to how to work with people to get them to that space that you can do. My dad, he's always like, always dancing around and making a total goober of himself. I have learned to do that. It's like a psychological thing, right? The more that you're able to break down and show your vulnerable self, you're able to call that in from who's sitting with you. Specifically for Steve, once I got the lighting to a place, I just asked him to think about a very calm and peaceful place and to exude it through his eyes. I asked him to close his eyes a few moments. I asked him to take a few long, deep breaths. And it's never about 1, 2, 3. Ever for me. It's a habit that I tried very hard to break. Well, I want to catch my subject in a space of not knowing. I think those are the moments when you're able to capture the most authentic moment. It's kind of magical sometimes. So as I'm asking him to take a deep breath, relaxing his posture, and I just ask him just close his eyes, and when I do use 1, 2, 3 is when I say on 3, I'm going to ask you to slowly open your eyes, and then I'll hit the shutter. And it's in that moment they are more relaxed. More often than not, they've kind of dropped in to a space. And like I said, for my artistic portraits, we already have an understanding that this is going to be a photo session and I'm going to be doing certain things with my lights and all that. For a job, the atmosphere, the way I carry myself is very different. Did I know him well before that portrait? Yes, I did know him well. And for those of you that just joined, I am talking about the portrait of the man looking directly in the camera with his hands like this. I was wide open. The technical question, I was wide open. I have a bad habit of shooting wide open. It kind of comes from me thinking I was all back in the day when I first started taking pictures, because everybody else that I liked was taking photos wide open. I'm like, Dad, I need a 1.2 lens. And he's like, why? I said, because it looks cool. Like, I wasn't really connecting anything. Like, this is actually a really good segue. I'm going to just share this really quick. When I first started taking pictures, I actually thought about, this is like a download that I got the other day. When I first started taking photos, a lot of the early images that I took, much more crisp and clean. The lighting's very even. Today, because I just started taking film classes, I'm like, that looks good. Let's give it some grain. I'll give it some digital noise, right, to make it look grainier. It's interesting, the psychology of it all. The beginnings, I wanted everything to be very precise, very evenly lit, and that is a total nod to my father. My dad is amazing in that way. His lighting is always spot on. I think that's why I have a little anxiety about photography, because I just want to be like my dad, but I don't know if I'll ever be like my dad, so let's just leave that over there. Today, similar to the photos of my bachan, my grandmother, the photo is split because I put a chandelier crystal in front of the lens. And I'm just playing with with whatever light that I have. I like that dynamic. I like the imperfection. I like seeing the light refracting in and out, going, not having that control. Because I feel like as human beings, especially with my portrait photography, if I'm able to give it a little bit more humanity creatively, it allows or shows the humanity of my subject. If I shoot something that's super crisp and clean, and I'm specifically talking about artistic photos right now. Crisp and clean, tight, perfect lighting belongs in the professional headshots that I get to assist with. There's a very specific way that those headshots are done. They need to be in focus, perfect lighting. Artistic photos, I actually really like playing with whatever arrives, the spontaneity of it all. That's why I like holding the crystal. I should have brought one. I have a collection of antique, vintage, hopefully not lead, crystals that I hold in front of my lens. They sell them online, but I just make my own. You can go to any antique store and buy some crystals and string them yourself and dangle them in front of your lens. I like that. And when I had a moment with my grandmother who has dementia, it was so fitting to have the dual image of her. One obviously is a little bit more clear than the second one is a little bit more blurry. And it's such a, I don't know, I thought it was a gorgeous metaphor for, the disease. I've done a lot more portraiture using that idea with spherical crystals. And it just gives a really interesting, intriguing way to see another person versus just the straight on clear, image of them. I also think that as a creative, we have to be careful. Well, I have to be careful. It looking gimmicky. I think there's a fine line there. I think there's so many cool, kitschy, fun filters and things that we can use. For me, as pretty and as cool and kitschy as they are, I have to ask myself, okay, why am I attracted to this light? Why am I attracted to the way that it looks? What is it adding to my own vision? What story is it telling? Is it adding to the story or is it just making it cool looking? There's definitely a place for cool looking things, but I think your filter or in my case, the crystal isn't adding to the narrative of the story that I'm trying to tell. It looks a little gimmicky, and I try to avoid that. Whew, I'm going to take a breath just for a second. Mr. Hesketh, thank you so much for joining. Kevin says, does art and photography creativity feel differently? Sometimes art pulls me out of my surroundings and into my head, where photography is the opposite, it feels. Art, in terms of painting, I feel like because I've painted portraits before, my photographs of people reflect my painting style. And I just realized that recently. I like to come real tight with my portraits. Just like I like to come in real tight with my paintings of people. That has definitely fueled the way that I see photography. The feeling of being creative, I'll tell you this, I am not someone who can storyboard something and say, okay, look, this looks great, let's do this frame here, the next frame we're going to do this, and then this, because what happens every single time I try to art direct my own shoot, I'm like, I'll be like, okay, well, let's do this shot, and then I'll look at it and I'll think, let's do this instead. And it goes off in a completely different direction. So for my own stuff that I do photographically, I got to stay loose. If I start to narrow, I feel like I keep myself too narrow if I stick to a plan. Because once I start following the plan and I see something that is better, I'm going to completely go, I'll follow that instinctively. It's probably not the healthiest thing to do sometimes, maybe in a professional situation, but for my own art, for my own portraiture, if I'm like, that light right there, let's do that instead. We'll just go down that alley, and every time I do that, I'm happy with the results. Every time. Confucius says, what are your thoughts on the future of photography in a world where AI can generate any imaginable image? I don't like AI. Have I used it to support me in figuring out how to do certain things in the household? Yes. Yeah, I have a lot to say. Hold on. I might be a little bit unpopular after I make this statement, but I'm going to say it, and I'm going to practice speaking my truth right now. I do not feel like the portraits that are made with AI or the ones where you put in your photo and it enhances you. You can argue and tell me, it takes away my wrinkles, or it takes away that mold that I don't like, or it makes my neck smoother. It is not you. Like I said earlier, in my 20s, working with so many women who perpetually complain about themselves and can find every little nook and cranny that they don't like about themselves. I feel like AI is the new makeup girl, is the new makeup artist, but it's more dangerous. I think it's giving people, it's skewing the way that we see ourselves. I actually thought about this recently. How, when we look at images of things that aren't really the way that they are, how does that make any difference when a photographer, in their own, subjectivity, is photographing someone, right? We see someone the way that we see them. Duh. For example, I've had a client come in who wanted to be photographed in a certain style. She wanted it to look very Hollywood glamour. Fine. We did really cool Fresnel lights. It was very dramatic. So in that way, I can see we're manipulating something to look like something else. With AI, yes, we can take ourselves and put us in a situation where we are dressed, the lighting is the same. But if you can connect with a side by side of your portrait and then a portrait created in AI that has enhanced that portrait, look into their eyes. Are you able to really connect with that person? There's so many portraits that I see on Facebook, and please, no hate to any of my friends or family that have AI generated portraits on Facebook. But I will say, when you look at these photos, I can tell right away that they're AI generated. They're just too sleek. And as a photographer, as an artist, I like to see the authenticity behind people's eyes. Okay, my dad says, whether I am shooting for client who has a set format for all their personnel, or if I'm shooting for myself and my subject, I strive for an honest image of my subject and their honest and vulnerable self. Get them out of their head. Yes. Okay. I was also thinking about this. That's a great, great statement. How do you get somebody out of their head when you're in your head? Okay? Like, I have been in a situation many times, still to this day. I have to clear myself and do like my own little before I photograph someone. Because the things that I have to clear are going to impact directly my client, my subject, the person who's sitting in front of the lens. If I'm worried about, did I charge my battery? Is my light in the right place? Did I make sure I turned off the oven at home? Like, if I have all these other things in my head, my sitter is going to feel everything that I'm feeling, that nervousness. Do I know, like, if I don't know my camera, if I don't know how to use it, if I'm not like acclimated, your client will feel it. So there's that. But once you're able to acclimate yourself to your equipment, all the technical gear, if you're still worried about somebody at home, you're still worried about a bill that's not paid, you got to do whatever you got to do to clear your mind so that you can directly connect with your subject. It's going to be different for everyone. My dad gave me some advice a long time ago. He said, well, actually, it's not advice, it's a comment that I took to heart. He said, I like people. My dad likes people. He says, you got to like people to be able to photograph people, which is so true. If you're not interested in who they are as a human being, it will be reflected in your portrait. And that goes for both professional headshots and for artistic portraits as well. Kyle says, in creating this story, you want to tell how much of the creative process happens before the shoot versus during the shoot. It is easy for me to feel like my entire shoot is the thumbnailing process. I have a book in my planner that goes through ideas that I have. I thumbnail ideas. Oh, this is the wrong book. I don't have it today. But yes, I do keep something with me for ideas, and I also put it in my phone. But like I said, when I start shooting, and if something sparks my eye and I see the way that something else can be moved or lit or put in the shot or taken out of the shot, I just do it. Um, there's there's a lot of head process before the shoot, but during the shoot, it's like everything becomes inspiration. And whatever's not inspiration, it's like get it get it out. And that includes music. I mean, I know as creatives, we're all into our sound, right? I'm super into the vibe of the space, right? Like if I'm painting, if I'm in the car, like the vibe in your space and you're photographing people, even if you're doing corporate headshots, if you can have a little like mini speaker in there just to kind of like fill the space, I promise you it's going to make the biggest difference for yourself and for the client. You just puts everybody at ease, right? Um, yeah, that's a big process for me. Let's see. Andra says, when you are approaching the conceptual stage for your commercial work, is it a different approach than when it is your fine art work? Okay, I'm going to kind of see if this answers your question. I am a true believer in faking it till you make it. I copied my dad and his images of people for, I guess, I mean, I still do. And then I was introduced to Sean Tucker. If you guys are interested in some really great philosophical, nuanced views on photography and life, Sean Tucker is fantastic. He's also on YouTube. He's a photographer originally from South Africa, and now he's in England. Totally lost my train of thought for a second. I started thinking about Sean Tucker. I have like the biggest crush on Sean Tucker. Sean Tucker, if you're watching, I'm single. I'm just kidding. My kids are probably like cringe right now. What was I saying? So Andra was asking different approach. Oh, let me focus. um, okay. Okay. Oh, copy. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Okay. Now I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. Sean Tucker. I love his street photography and I love his portrait photography. And I'm like, okay, how can I emulate that? And why is it that I want to? I'm sorry. Why do I want to emulate his work? And what is it about other people's work that inspires me? So I'll try to copy it. I'll see where the light's coming from, where you have to move it to make it give it that feeling. It is more important for me at this point to make sure the image is making me feel a certain way than it is for me to make it look technically correct. Does that make sense? So in terms of process and figuring things out beforehand, and I'm talking about people photography, portrait photography right now, I rarely figure out everything before. I have maybe a general idea of what lens I want to use, what tone of the photograph I want. So whether it's more of a vintage or more bright and contemporary, high key or low key, but that's about it because the subject is going to bring something to the session that you have no idea what they're going to bring, and they may walk in a heaviness, and I don't necessarily want to change that. I want them to be as authentic as possible, and if I'm seeing something kind of brooding and mysterious, I'll be with that. My dad says a good portrait is a collaboration of your subject's self-image and your creativity and your creativity. It's like Confucius, right? My dad's like freaking Confucius over here. He's like the Buddha of photography. An affinity for you. Yes, yes, absolutely. If there is something that I've learned from my dad, it is that you have got to like what you're photographing. Kyle says, thank you. I saw you working live with the birthday. Oh, yes, the Birthday Crown Society. And it amazed me how fluid and in the moment you are. It brought so much playfulness out in the subjects. Back in about 6 years ago, I was asked by Kim Garrison Means, a professor in the art department, to collaborate with her and her friend in the Birthday Crown Society. And it was displayed in the Doyle Arts Gallery about 7 years ago, I think now. And it was a phenomenal opportunity to practice consistent lighting with inconsistent subjects. So each subject had a very different hat on, as well as 3 feet tall to like very small. So yes, Kyle, that was a good time. I really appreciate that. Al Nomura says, Alex Webb says, I don't know what to shoot until I see it. I might add until I feel. Absolutely. I feel that with street photography all the time. Hi, Tim. Hi, Rescue Quad CPR. There's a couple things that I wanted to share with you. Please keep asking. Or are there artists? Doesn't have to be a photographer that you currently find interesting. Yes. Hilma af Klint is probably one of my favorites of all time. Her work is abstract, but it looks eerily modern. Her work informs a side of me that is more spiritual and how I organize thoughts about color, structure, and form. Hilma af Klint, I mean, yeah, that's the first one that comes to my mind. There's a lot more, and I can't remember them right now because I'm so hot, and I'm almost done here. Oh my God, I've been talking for almost an hour straight. In terms of people who are inspiring and books that I've really, they're like my personal creative Bibles. This is by Sean Tucker. It's called The Meaning in the Making. He's also on YouTube. I highly, highly recommend his work. His YouTube videos are more philosophical, not gear or technical oriented. He really gets to the meat of what informs the way he sees the world, and you are able to kind of reflect and see how your life informs your work through his writing. He's great. Graphic artist James Victore. Many of you probably are familiar with James. James Victore. This is his book Feck Perfection. This is where I'll go if I'm having a moment of I can't do this anymore. This is dumb. Nothing I do is good. If I'm really hard on myself, this is the book I go to because there are very short, very inspiring, just very short stories that give you just the kick in the butt that you need and remind you who we are. And the last one is Creative Calling by Chase Jarvis. You guys know Chase Jarvis. It's a great book on creativity. The one book that I don't have that I'm sure my dad would tell you is also great is the Rick Rubin book. It's the one with the circle and the dot in it. Rick Rubin, that guy with the long beard. He's pretty awesome too. What else did I want to share with you guys? Please keep the questions coming. I do want to acknowledge a couple things. I wrote it down specifically. There's a couple people that I want to thank. I want to thank Jay and Isadora Myers and their foundation for giving me the opportunity to participate in something that has changed my life and that will help fund things that I normally wouldn't be able to do. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to make a couple purchases on things that will help continue my growth as a photographer and as a creative. Okay. Leslie, Agatha, Will, Richard, Blade, all of my friends that I've met at Orange Coast College, the professors are incredible. I have learned so much in such a short period of time, and I feel so lucky to be able to continue this journey so late in life. I feel like I've just begun to I've just scraped the surface of what's possible in what I do bring to the world creatively, and being a part of this family and meeting so many of you. Andra, I'm so inspired by you. Kyle, my good friend, you all have been there, especially Kyle, from the very beginning of this whole journey, and I'm just very excited to continue walking this path of creativity with you all. My dad has been my inspiration. My dad has been my inspiration since I was born. I've been sketching since I was very little because I was copying my mom when she was designing clothes in our living room. And I also want to thank my kids, my twins, and thank you for dealing with mommy's craziness with my artistic flair, so to speak. It takes a lot of patience to be around artists. Sometimes we get into our head and we have that, yeah, we borderline, like, psychopath, but we're fine, we're just creative, ultra creative. Are there any other, what advice or insights would you have for someone who is considering a career in the visual arts but fears taking the leap due to financial instability, familial disappointment, age, etc.? That is my life right there. I don't know if you heard the beginning of this live stream, Leighton Blue, but don't give up on yourself. And when you choose to be creative, do it for you. Don't do it for anyone else except for you. If there's one thing that I've learned, it's you can never disappoint yourself. When we start introducing other people into the mix, like I did with my family, we have an expectation of how they're supposed to react to our work. The same goes for, I guess, anyone, right? We have an expectation of how we're supposed to be seen. But if we can connect to ourselves and understand that we're always a work in progress and that our creativity, no one else has the ideas, no one else can see the world that we see it, no matter how hard we try, whether in a painting, a photograph, a piece of art, no one will see and understand what we've created the way that we see it. And the faster that you can connect to accepting what you create, the faster you'll be able to share more of your creativity with the world, because it won't matter what other people think. That level of authenticity, and I know that word's thrown around a lot, but it really fits this conversation well. The more authenticity that bleeds from your work, the more people will be able to feel it and want that. I think if you reflect on some of the artists and creatives and people out there who you admire, they'll tell you probably something very similar. When you're able to go forward and be someone who creates just for the sake of creating, not because you want to make the bucks, not because you want accolades or success, whatever that means, you will truly be happy. Does that make sense? And I'd love to talk about that with you off camera. That's like what I do. I love helping people get down to their creative juice. So I would love to connect with you. If you lost all of your gear and you need a camera but only had 600, best camera you have is the one in your hand. Boom. Right here. The best camera is the one you have. Some of my favorite photos have been made on this machine. Actually, one of the earliest iPhones, right? If you had $600 to go purchase something, what would I go buy? I go buy a lens. I think you can get, one of my favorite portrait lenses is an 85 millimeter. It's like $400 ish, but 600, I don't know. I'd probably go buy some paper and some film because it's so freaking expensive. That's what I would do. I would just go find yourself a cool working vintage camera at Antique Market. Go buy some 120 film and some paper and have at it. Use that money towards developing, because nothing will slow you down and get you out of your head as film will. Yeah, that's what I would do. You're welcome, Leighton Blue. Ansel Adams says, the quest and path to perfection is strewn with much that is excellent. Oh, again, Confucius speaks, my dad. I think my dad needs to have his own, like, live. It'll be filled with all these little morsels of photographic wisdom. All right, guys, it's 12:04. Any other questions that I can answer for you? If not, I would love to connect with you off camera. Please message me. I'm at Elora Fina Photography. I'm at elorafina@gmail. I would love to have lunch, have coffee, connect, collaborate. Gosh, I'm so inspired by so many of your works, all of you. I would love to see what you're working on. Yeah, I think with being creative, a big part of what makes it special is when you're around other creatives and we can support each other and give each other that little extra nudge that I think we all need sometimes, to keep going, to keep creating, even when it's the hardest. Because I think once some of the most brilliant work comes when we hit rock bottom. We are forced, like I said, if we don't create, we as a human species um, will die. We got to keep creating, and we got to keep supporting each other. And it's not about competition, it's about supporting and connectivity and community. Yes. Ooh, with 600, go for a Canon T70. Yes. I know those, you got some money. If you want like a quick kit, Costco, I'm telling you. We used to teach, actually, we still teach photography classes here once in a while, and students would ask the same question. What kit do I get? What should I get if I want to get a little bit of everything? Costco. Get the camera, a couple lenses, good to go. All right. Any other questions, anybody? I'm so excited. There were people here talking and chatting, and it makes my heart sing. Any last words? All right, I'm going to read you something really quick, okay? Since I still have 12 people online. This is going to get you. Okay, ready? Gosh, I know I'm over time a little bit, but I'm going to read this anyway. This is from Sean Tucker's book. It's really quick. Every photographer knows the importance of shadows. Every image is made up of captured light and shadow. We're drawn to the light, but it's the shadows that sculpt the light into the shapes you recognize. Without shadow or the absence of light, we would just be looking at a blank piece of paper. Shadows give us the light, its boundaries and its form, whether it's a smooth, gradual transition from light to shadow, or a hard and sudden edge that separates highlights and shade. Shadows hold the light in its frame and help us recognize what we're looking at. In short, shadows are a photographer's best friend. Like a photograph, we as artists are all a mixture of light and shadow, and we need to embrace our shadows in order to become better rounded human beings with richer stories to tell. If we pretend to be perfect in the ways we project ourselves, we stand the real danger of creating work that comes across as one note. Rich work emanates from rich interiors, and nuanced art comes from those who own and access every part of who they are. And there's a quote by Carl Jung. I kind of skipped over a little bit. It says, "I'd rather be whole than good." And he's talking about the way that people view us and our work, and being authentic to ourselves and creating from a space of authenticity rather than being liked. Again, I can't say enough about this book. It's changed the way that I think about myself. It's changed the way that I think about my work, and it's gotten me closer to, I think, my humanity as a creative. So I hope you pick it up. I do not get paid to talk about Sean Tucker. But again, Sean Tucker, if you're watching, I'm single. Have a great Saturday, you guys. Please, let's connect. I would love to have coffee with all of you. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for everyone for joining. Again, thank you to the staff at Orange Coast College, all my friends there, and everything that you continue to do for so many of us. We appreciate you. We love you.